to meet climate targets. Well, got to make sure we meet those targets. The Canada Energy Regulator said that yesterday. The federal agency invoked an energy alert in Alberta in the winter of 24. That's how the province narrowly avert rolling blackouts in -40. And it says, how will future trends affect reliability? Electricity demand is expected to increase significantly in the coming years. And that's from the Energy Regulator. Trends driving increased demand include electricity projected role in decarbonization efforts and the growing electrification of end users, like includes more EVs and heat pumps. Meeting this rising electricity demand could be a reliability challenge, and higher electricity consumption can make it difficult for grid operators to reliably provide sufficient power during peak periods. I think it really is, it behooves you to kind of understand how electricity works. It is completely different. Some people think it's almost like gasoline, like, like you pump it and then it goes through the system. Electrons are completely different. It's a pull thing, right? Like, just go do a basic thing and understand how electricity works, right? And how grids can actually black out from overpull and stuff like that. So it's a pull thing. It's not a push. You're not pushing electricity. It's pulled through the system, right? And it's instantaneous. Like, the power from the Site C dam, for instance. Like it's here right away. It's electrons, right? And it's not doesn't flow all the way down and come down, and what I mean. You don't measure it like that, right? It's pulled through the system, and that's why. Like they try to balance loads, right? So that you don't have these up and downs, because it ramps up and ramps down as the pull system, right? So I could go on and on. I mean, I've done lots of shows on electricity, but it's really important. And so they got these, they got like peaker plants and that they run in the States and likely in Alberta too, these peaker plants. So when the pull is higher, like when people come home, like when people come like around 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock, the washer and dryers go off, the dishwashers go off, there's this huge pull. So what it does is pulls a peaker plant online, right? So Site C can't keep up or whatever, and then all of a sudden it fires up an LNG plant or fires up a coal plant or whatever. But all these regulations by the government here are saying, oh, you can't run those, right? Because of climate targets and that, so you can't turn those ones on. And they have all these emissions caps and all that stuff. So then what should Canadians do? Freeze?
Yeah, I mean, the consequences just could be enormous, couldn't they? And it is related very much to wind and solar and the inability of grid managers to know how to deal with the, like you say, the peaks and troughs of supply.
So
and that's what happened in Spain and Portugal. It was too much, wasn't it? I think it was too much solar, and they just didn't know. They didn't know how to organize it. They didn't know how to administer it, and people died. That's in Spain and Portugal. Very, very mild parts of the world, but people died. Imagine if that happened in, as you say, -40 in Alberta or something like that. Like, how many deaths are you looking at there? God forbid.
So when the draw is strong, a peaker plant comes on, like a LNG plant comes on, and it provides the electricity and it gets drawn through the system. You can't go out there to the windmill and there's no wind and say, turn, turbine, turn. Right?
Just go.
Batteries do manage it, though. Batteries help, right? But again, the best battery maker out there is Tesla.
There are also other ideas, like with water and sort of trying to pump. When you've got an excess of energy, use that to pump water, and then when you've got a deficit, bring the water down and take a dam.
Right?
But
it's basically battery storage, right?
But that's
a battery
kind
of sorts.
Yeah, basically. And you can combine it with a reservoir. But that's pretty experimental, isn't it, at this point? And it's presumably very, very expensive. So
again, we're running it here, but MPs asked to permit digital ID. Canadian airports are petitioning the Commons Finance Committee to introduce digital IDs for domestic travelers. Current regulations require only passengers carry a driver's license. When you go to the airport, you try to get on flights, either a passport or a driver's license, right? And they want these digital IDs. So again, there's a lot of people that don't want digital IDs, and there's a lot of people that want digital IDs. And it's going to be interesting to see, I think, with our friend Keir Starmer pushing for digital IDs, that Mark Carney will likely push to adopt it. I don't
know if he's our friend, but he's certainly Mark Carney's friend, isn't he? Seems to be his blood brother.
And here come the stories from the government-funded media. Get ready for this. Surging CO2 levels, a sign Canada must resist climate backsliding. And then here we go, right? Here come the stories. because this is going to set us up for what's coming next. The prominent Canadian climate scientist Damon Matthews of Concordia University has warned that Canada must resist pressure to loosen emissions targets amid a need to cut global CO2 levels. There you go. So we got to cut, right?
Canada represents
China,
at most
India,
1.5%.
and the US. Who cares, right? What's that?
I'm just saying Canada represents at most 1.5% of global CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Again,
here's the deal.
How are we going to do that? How are we going to help? I mean, the Paris deal agreement 2015, I believe it was, that was supposed to be like, okay, we're all little, or many of us are little countries, but we'll all come together and we'll do this. And it was just compromised in the extreme. You had lots of countries that emit loads saying, oh no, you emitted more in the 1850s, so therefore let's adjust and I'm going to do less and you're going to do... Like, the whole thing has proved to be impossible to get people to agree to it. So why should Canada do it unilaterally? That question is just never answered. Here's
the answer for you. I've got the answer for you. And we talked about it before, and I did a really long LinkedIn post on this. This is the answer. Remember Tim Hodgson was promoting that carbon capture company coming to Canada? Carbon Capture USA. It's coming to Canada. American company, they touted it as, look at this, an American company coming to Canada. Yeah, it's getting 75% tax credit to come here on every dollar, 75 cents on the dollar tax credit. And then it's doing this thing here, where it's then going to have the ability to tax our energy companies. They're giving them the ability by selling carbon credits. But listen to Tim Hodgson explain this to you. He's gonna like clearly explain to you why Canada needs to lead in this area.
I've seen some Canadians express skepticism online and ask why we're investing in carbon management when we could simply do things like plant more trees. So let's take a few minutes to explain what carbon management is, why we're investing in this technology, and why planting trees alone won't be enough to meet our goals. The steel, cement, oil, and gas produced in Canada are essential to our economy. However, they also often require high temperature and complex chemical reactions that produce carbon emissions, or CO2. CO2 is a greenhouse gas with a significant impact on climate change. You know what?
You're going to go watch this yourself. I'll explain it to you in like 10 seconds as he plays the music that puts you to sleep there, and you
get like spa music, isn't it? It's like...
hypnotize you, and this is like, yes, that's the way, carbon capture. Oh, that's it. I never figured that out before. So carbon capture and carbon capture credits, and if you go look at Brookfield, go look at the Brookfield BAM website there, and guess what you're going to find? Lots of stuff on carbon capture and the sale. You can actually go on there and they'll show you the companies that are actually buying carbon credits. So this is the climate grift that's going on. They're going to, just think about this. It goes on. You can go watch this whole thing yourself.
Companies ask.
You can go and so they've set up this big kind of like HVAC system or whatever, this monstrosity, and they're going to suck air through it. They're going to use energy to suck air through it. They're going to capture this carbon, and then they're going to put it in filters, and then they're going to sequester it, and then they're going to put it in a truck, and they're going to truck it to a different site, and then they're going to inject it into the ground to hide it there, to keep it, like out of our environment. Like, I don't know how they figure out how they're going to stay in the ground. It's a gas. and then the best part, the beauty of it all, they're going to sell it to oil companies and that, or anybody, industrial carbon tax. You're going to have to buy these carbon credits to do anything. So you're basically giving companies like Brookfield the right to tax everybody. That's what it is. You're giving them the right to tax everybody to do anything. It's almost like Visa. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're going to take 2 or 3% off everybody. It's brilliant, actually. If you think about it from their perspective, it's absolutely brilliant. And the public, according to what they're going to do, the public is going to demand it. These carbon credits.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It's the best climate grift ever. Like, they're actually, like, it's almost like selling NFTs. Like, you can't even prove that it's in the ground. How many times will they sell that carbon credit that they injected into the ground? Whose carbon credit is that in the ground? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's going to go down there and check if it's still there, or who bought what? You're going to trust these people that are selling it?
Most importantly of all, is we need the subtitles to come up saying, meanwhile, in China, India, and the
or
United
better
States,
yet,
and Indonesia, and Nigeria, and Russia, and Japan. It's like nobody else cares about this garbage.
but
But
better yet, but better
Canada will
yet,
save the world.
but better yet, the best processor of carbon is a tree. Grass, it's not just a tree. It's grass, it's trees, or wheat fields, or anything that has photosynthesis. And you don't have to inject the carbon, it processes it and releases oxygen. And if you go look at Carbon Capture USA, the reason they say they don't like trees, because they're just coming up with like BS reasons. The reason they say that trees don't work, because the climate change is burning all the trees down. So wildfires has made trees uncertain. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a stable supply. No, and now,
well, climate change apparently is meaning so that it has created a situation where they can't absorb carbon anymore. That's another thing. There's a BBC News is leading on that today, talking about how Australia's rainforest no longer sucks in carbon because of climate change.
It's photosynthesis, which is a BS. And then if you listen to what he says, you need more trees. But if you actually just go and ask, trees are way more efficient. They're like 10 times more efficient than this carbon capture is. 10 times more efficient. So, but hey, you can make all the little pretty graphics and all that little stuff there, and you can sell the climate grift, and that's what they're doing. But again, in the United States...
Good friend, I just have to point out a good friend here, because I mentioned India there. He says, or she says, India is solarizing, not sure I accept that verb, but okay, faster than the rest of the planet, and so is Pakistan. Do you think at any point in your lifetime, or anyone's lifetime, that India will contribute a smaller proportion of global emissions than Canada? That's what we're talking about here. It's about the proportion. Obviously, India, its proportion is growing. Its CO2 emissions are growing. Just because they're building solar panels, that doesn't really change that, does it? This is a conversation about CO2 emissions.
Well, I'm going to say something here for China is leading in that area in solar panels. But the other thing is I have solar panels on my roof, right? And I think it's great. And I also drive an EV and driven an EV for we have like 4 EVs in the family. I think they're great. My problem is stop forcing people to do things. Show people that it's better, faster, and more important than doing it this way. Like this is wrong. What's being done? This is climate grifting. This is what it is. People profiting. Solar, I think, and I can do a whole show on electricity and how solar could actually solve a lot of the grid needs and everything. Solar is a big part of the solution. I believe solar at the end of the day, in 100 years, maybe, or whatever, will be the solution. Solar will be the solution. But it isn't there today. So we don't need Canadians not to be able to put food on their table because we're too stupid and too ideological to allow Canadians to feed their families. Let's just stop
when we
being
can't make a difference.
Yeah, let's stop being nonsensical.
Maybe if we were China, maybe if we were the Chinese and we were responsible for like more than a third of global emissions, maybe we could have a different conversation then, because we might actually be able to make a difference. As it happens, unfortunately, some would say, we can't make a difference. All we can do realistically is try to survive and invent technology that can help decarbonize.
And if you can't see the conflict of interest that Brookfield has in this climate grift that's going to come out with carbon credits, this is the absolute nonsense. These carbon credits that they're going to sell, this is climate grifting. Marco Rubio, here's the Americans. They ain't going to stand for it because the UN is trying to push because the UN lost its voice in this climate grift here because America said we're not playing anymore. But this week the UN is attempting to pass the first global carbon tax, which will increase energy, food, and the fuel costs around the world. And he says, we will not allow the UN to tax American citizens and its companies. So, I mean, there you go. How far are they going to get when Trump just makes a few phone calls to a few key people and says, not a chance?
It's ridiculous. We also passed out, we talked about Tim Hudson. We also passed over another bit. I don't know if we've got time to watch the video, but earlier today, he's in London. For some reason, he was on his little webcam there, talking to journalists. And he said something very interesting about Keystone XL, where it's like, we want to work with the Americans, we want North American energy and all that stuff. And then he said something like, in the context of Keystone XL, he said, we don't particularly care how that oil gets to America, the route that it takes. We're just happy to get it to America, which is a really interesting comment from him. And then he also was asked a question about BC. And you know how David Eby's been complaining and he's been saying, Alberta's ministers have been coming to BC and talking to our First Nations, ours, and like how wrong and how outrageous that is. Tim Hodgson said, no, actually, Alberta is doing what you should do, which is speaking to the people who would be affected by an infrastructure project. So I also found that very interesting. Hodgson coming to the defense of Danielle Smith.
That's what I mean. There is no continuity. There is no clear message. It's chaos.
But that's true as well. I mean, that's complete. That is a very good point, and I was going to make that point actually. Even though that might be pleasant to hear for some people, particularly in Alberta, to hear Hodgson say that. But if you look at it from the outside, you take the sort of long view. What is going on? Like, who's determining policy? Where's the clarity? It's just a bit of a mess now, isn't it? There's no certainty.
And these are some of the climate grifters, and this is one of the big climate grifters in the U.S. And listen to this misinformation thing here. Listen here, just a quick 20 seconds here from our friend AOC. She's a big fan of the show as well.
Rivers in rural areas were on fire because of corporations poisoning the people who lived in those areas. Poor middle-class communities getting poisoned and dumped on by corporations like Deloitte and 3M, pouring chemicals into these places. And they want to call it a democratic priority.
Rivers of fire in the U.S. and Deloitte is an accounting firm.
Deloitte. It's an accountancy. Yeah, it's an accountancy firm. I think it's British, actually, isn't it?
I worked in an accounting firm, and I can remember that in the back room there, instead of just doing tax returns and corporate returns and that, I can remember saying, like, where do we keep all the oil that we dump in the river? I don't know.
I thought that was AI at first because it was a bit blurry. Somebody here, again, I mean, we probably should stop talking to him this much, even though I find it very entertaining.
Find it entertaining? There you go.
He just says, so to be clear, this channel believes that the entire global warming body of science is a grift? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I would ask the audience, did Jim say that? Or did I say that? Did we say that?
Carbon credits are a grift.
Maybe this carbon credit thing that's been orchestrated by literally monopoly man, by the richest people in the world who live in Wall Street and make their money there. The people like this woman here, theoretically, despises because they represent like the billionaire class. It's a criticism of what they're doing and how they are taking control of questions of climate change.
I think the thing is like this is the thing, like, you know, like when people want to look, they've lost all point of reasoning. The carbon credit is the grift. The carbon credit thing is the grift. It's not about climate change. That's the grift. Like I said, I drive an EV. I believe it's the solution. It's the best for the world. And I believe, like, again, here's a simple test. Go start your gas car in your garage, leave the door closed. Don't do it because it's a bad idea.
I was going to say, don't do that.
Don't do it. It's a bad idea. But you can go in your EV and you can sit in it all day, right? Like, I have to be careful who I talk to here because guys like Lightning Rod might actually go and test this theory out, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
God bless them.
You gotta think about it, right? If you look at that whole presentation,
it's almost like a religious conversation, isn't it? It's like when people like the Catholic Church, quite famously, hundreds of years ago, used to sell indulgences, very, very controversial, and they said this is a way to reach God, basically, and they said we'll help you do that for a bit of money. Obviously, that upset a huge number of people, but that is fundamentally that's an argument about how do we reach God? How do we get grace? How do we be good Christians and all the rest of it? You will get predatory, cynical people like the Catholic Church in that instance, who will jump on a legitimate concern that people might have and make money out of it. That is the grift. I'm pretty sure that's what we're talking about here. That's what Jim is talking about.
So Lightning Rod, like if you really want to be taken seriously, just put your name to all your comments. Just put it down instead of just Lightning Rod. Just put it down. We put our names out here. Here's Anita Nan. She's got something to say too. Again, let's listen in to what she has to say.
We have what the world wants in Canada, and now we are leveraging our competitive advantages. I'm not sure if you've heard, but we have 10 large national projects, including wind, including LNG, including nuclear energy with the development of an SMR at the Darlington nuclear plant.
That's good. That's good.
Countries around the world.
Good enough. First thing that comes out of it, what does Canada have? Wind? Wind. Everybody's got wind. No, that's it. And so only Canada has wind? Do you know what I mean? Like, does the wind not blow anywhere else? What does Canada have
it's
that's
the most
unique?
controversial. It's the most controversial of all of the major sources of renewable energy.
But I'm just saying,
well.
people are coming here because we have wind. Huh. I would have thought the wind blew everywhere. I could be wrong.
And it does. I mean,
I could be
there
wrong.
are some good patches in Newfoundland, apparently, for wind on the wind maps, but they have more reliable, cheaper forms of energy there. I'm not sure why they would
I do know what Canada has that nobody else really has. Right, that's energy and resources. That's what we have, Anita. And then let's look at this chart here. This chart just published by the OECD. There you go. Red bar, that's Canada.
Wow. I'm just looking at the top. I mean, I would have taken it for granted that Canada would be at the bottom, but I'm just looking at the top there. Turkey, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland. They're making a mockery of us.
So if everybody's coming to Canada, Jolie says we're #1 in AI. She says we have everything everybody wants. They're all coming here for wind and everything. Why doesn't it show up on here? What's going on?
It needs the Anita Anand treatment, doesn't it? Then it would look better.
She's traveled around the world recently, and she just had lots of photo ops. But where's the deal? Where's the deal? Where's one deal that says this many dollars, this much investment? Where? I don't see it. There must be so much back.
There's so much opportunity as well, isn't there? It's like sometimes that's something we don't maybe talk about that very much. There's so much opportunity in the way the world is changing. As Melanie Jolie told us, the world is changing. She discovered that a couple of weeks ago, didn't she? But just right now, a massive story in the world is the rare earths ban that the Chinese, or export ban, the effective export ban that the Chinese have put in place. They process something like 90% of the world's rare earths. We could do that. We have a lot of minerals. I mean, rare earths aren't rare.
20 years.
We have a lot of
20 years to get a mine permit in Canada.
But not only that,
20.
But because of the likes of our dear friend Lightning Rod here, who would immediately squeal about the CO2 emissions, because refining rare earths is very sort of CO2 heavy, intense. It puts out a lot of pollution. Things like that. There are opportunities there where we could do that. Not only could we do that and make money, but we could do that and be safe, which is probably more important. Because the fact that China processes 90% of rare earths means we are unsafe. We're in danger because of that. We could do that, but we won't do that because of ideological reasons. And Anita Anand, I think, illustrated that, where she starts talking about wind. There's no money in wind. And not only is there no money in wind, there's no geopolitical value in wind either.
Definitely not unique to Canada. People are coming to Canada because we have what everybody needs. Wind is the first thing that comes out of their mouth. The wind might be something that the Liberals express every time they open their mouth.